Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 405, Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry. Link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. It's 146 pages, so it's an intermediate read. It's technically full length, but Clymer had an interesting editing style. I'll describe that briefly for the purposes of this work in a moment. Second and third links are to my books, blogs. I'll have to put up the blog post later for this. It's a Rosicrucian work. Clymer was one of the leaders of Rosicrucianism in his era, one of the two main orders of Rosicrucianism. And it's about the Freemasons. It's specifically a historical timeline from like the ancient mystery schools, the pyramids, the Atlantis thing, looking at the symbolism, looking at the mysteries and rites and so forth, and tracing the lineage of what became Freemasonry to that. Of course, they hadn't formed at the time, but those philosophical and mystic principles become intertwined with the Freemasons. They then largely become a Christianized order. Of course, they do take monotheists of other orders, but it had been largely comprised of people that were also Bible-believing Christians, and talking about their architecture, the symbolism of their fraternal order, etc. This particular work is mystic in nature. Clymer is mainly interested in the magical, the occult side of the symbolism of the Freemasons. He's not, and in the history of their founding and some of their members as well. He goes into detail on that. So it's not similar to many other works that were made in this same era about the Freemasons. A lot of them are more civic in nature, as I've explained before. A lot of them had to do with Americanism. There was a huge overlap between that and Freemasonry, or British patriotism to an extent, talking about the persecution of Freemasons, various gripings about that, and talking about then modern anthropology, especially archaeological materials. I edited a couple of works about the concept of Native American Freemasonry and how some of their practices, their lodges, etc., overlap somewhat with the concept of Freemasonry despite no contact when those rites were already being done. This definitely lent itself into the antediluvian argument over the concept of a root race or Atlantis, by the way, and it was hotly debated at the time, although not so much today. Now, Clymer's editing is very interesting, as I pointed out. He decided to make a numbered list of sections in this instead of just doing the normal paragraph-style format. And unfortunately, Clymer, while he was decent at writing, number one, made quite a few spelling errors. And I don't mean spelling errors like it's archaic language. I mean like it would have been misspelled even in the time. I don't think he had a proofreader for this work. Some of the numbers are out of order, and I've retained all of that. I retained the misnumbering, etc., because it could be for some weird symbolic purpose, so I said, whatever. I realized number 47 repeats several times. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't detract from the rest of the work. I thought about redacting that, but then I decided I'm just going to go with the flow and assume that there's some sort of ulterior motive by Clymer here. Maybe it's just to confuse people. Who knows? Overall, a very good work. Some of it, of course, might not be necessarily promoted by the Freemasons themselves in their modern incarnation, in their modern inception. They do tend to shy away from the overtly mystic thing that 100 years ago was more in vogue. And it is a Rosicrucian work. It's an overlap upon the core Freemasonry. But it's still well written, for the most part, other than, again, the numbering system, the order, the proofreading lacking. Very much recommended. If you're interested in the Freemasons or in Rosicrucianism, this would be one of the foremost works, actually. Clymer was very interested in the subject, made multiple works on the basic premise. This one, I think, is better than the others. It's more interesting and quite dense. Again, it's about ritualism, symbolism. It does talk about the pyramids and Atlantis and things like that. And it's been fully re-illustrated by Raven Feather Illustrations. So there's some illustrations of some of the concepts within the work itself. Again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. That's about all. Peace out.